right, so today, as I mentioned, is a different kind of service, right? And some of you may have experienced the white stone ceremony before, and for some of you, this might be your first time. For me, it's one of the most powerful experiences that we invite people into at Unity on the Bay, and especially at the beginning of the year, because it's an opportunity for us to center ourselves, ask the question, right? Like, who is it or how is it that I want to show up in the world this year? You know, when we think about names, right, and what people will call us, it's such a beautiful thing to recognize that, yes, you know, somebody can call me Juan, but wow, if somebody could totally feel and see me in such a way that when I'm walking down the street, they're like, hey, love, hey, light, right? How many of us would love to embody something so fully that that's the real name that we are called by? And today's service is really centering ourselves in what it is that we want to live into. How do we want to be named? How do we want to be called as we move through this powerful best year yet? Now, names are really important and powerful things. Now, back in biblical times, people weren't named just, you know, because great-great-grandma, you know, had that same name or something like that. People really looked at names as representing the essence that people felt, or maybe the way in which they lived into life, like even our last names, right? A lot of the last names that we have are based on our trade, you know, and what people did and what people were known for. And so this service really connects to that understanding. Many of you know that I have an 11-year-old son who I named Lucas Gabriel. And I still remember driving down to the hospital on the phone with my sister being like, okay, look up what this name means. Now look at what this name means. Look at what this name means. Because it was really important to me to do that, right? To be able to name him after something that I felt was really calling me into and something that I was really trusting he'd be able to live into. And so Lucas Gabriel means light and strength. And let me tell you, that kid is light and strong. Well, but in the Bible, there's other examples. Some of you may remember the story of when Abram became Abraham, because there was a moment where he recognized what God was calling him into, recognized the faith that was in him, and such a shift, right? Such a powerful shift needed to be acknowledged in such a big way as having that name changed. And so Abraham means father of many, because that's what he ended up living into. The same happened with the story of Sarai, who that word or that name means quarrelsome, and there was a shift, there was an evolution, and she became known as Sarah, which means princess. Saul became Paul, and Paul meaning humility, which was very different than who Saul was as the tax collector, right? And then many of us probably know the one that we know the most is Simon Peter. And so one of the apostles of Jesus, our master way shower, Simon meant listening, listen. And there was something that truly listened to that voice of spirit and to that Christ presence that Jesus exemplified. And through the conversion and the faith and the evolution that took place, Simon became known as Peter. And many of us may know that Jesus said, upon this rock, I will build my church. And Peter means rock. And so it just reminds me the moments that we are able to be open and to listen to that still small voice, boy, does that create such a strong foundation for the kind of life that we want to experience. And so new names means new roles, new ways of being. And again, is this your best year yet? Is this a year of abundance? Is this a year of love? Is this a year of connection? This is the year, right? Like, this is the year, this is the moment, this is the now. And so the question is, how will you be transformed this year? How will you spiritually evolve in the next year? And can that shift, that transformation, and that evolution be just so powerful that it demands a new name for you? That it demands for you to be known out in the world and in your life in a new way. Now, at the Burning Bull service, I believe it was that one. There's been a lot of services in the last couple of weeks, right? But I think it was the Burning Bull. I talked about a couple of years ago, I realized how beautiful it was, sort of the trajectory of the fall season, because it starts with Thanksgiving. And with Thanksgiving, this opportunity to just be reminded about the things that we can be in gratitude for. And I believe that in moments of gratitude, what we do is we allow ourselves to be open, right? And to open our hearts, to open our minds. And so that was followed by Advent, which is a time of preparation for that which we are. And so preparation to go deeper into love and faith and peace and joy, followed by Christmas. And that celebration of the Christ presence that we are, the rebirth that we get to have in our faith as a result of it, followed by New Year's Eve, where we, ask ourselves, okay, so what's the next year going to be like? What is it that I want from the next year? And because we are, doing this from the place of unity, we think about, well, now that I own my own Christhood more fully, what's life going to be like? And now we then get to move into the white stone, which is not only what is the vision that we have for the new year, but who are we going to be as a result of it? How is it that I want to show up to be able to achieve and manifest and create that life that we are envisioning for ourselves? And it really is about getting to the place of knowing and living into our truth. I love our mission statement, right? That we are a place of spiritual awakening, of evolution and action. And that happens, yes, in the general sense as a community for unity on the Bay, but that happens moment by moment in each and every one of us. And so the question for me is, how spiritually awakened are we to the truth of our being? And as we have those moments of clarity, as we have those moments of accepting our truth and becoming spiritually awakened to that, how do we use that to evolve? How do we use that to shift the ways in which we then take action in the world? And so as we go through this ceremony, I really invite you to be aware of that there is a spiritual awakening that has taken place and is taking place within you, that we are at a place of opening ourselves up to a greater sense of how it is that not only do we get to evolve into who we are, but that as we do that, we are also helping the evolution of humanity itself to become even closer with each other and with the essence and presence of the divine. And then, you all know me, or some of you know me, and some of you will get to know me. I'm all about the action. From that place, from that centeredness, from that understanding, how is it that I'm supposed to show up in the world? How is it that I'm supposed to respond to the people and the places and the situations that are going to be a part of this new year? Now, I wish I could tell you, you ain't gonna have any problems or any challenges or any issues in the new year. How many of you will believe me? Awesome. So I will see you at the end of 2024 and say, congratulations. And to me, it's not about whether we have challenges or difficulties. It's about how we are responding to it. And one of the things that I love when I think about this white stone is that we can really look at it as a stepping stone. So when we go through the meditation and we ask, what is that word or name that you are guided to write on your stone, think of it as what is supporting you in being used as a stepping stone into a new way of being. That new way of being, I believe, is always centered on the truth of who we are. And Imelda Shanklin says this: someday you will become wholly awakened to your divine identity and will begin to consciously take on the image of perfection. Did you know just how perfect each and every one of us are is, maybe, are. See, even without the grammar, right? Like, we can live into that perfection, and there is that image of perfection that is alive in us. Actually, Charles Fillmore, co-founder, said that Christ's presence that is within us is the perfection, is the model of perfection that we can tap into and live into. And so, yes, this is a stepping stone into knowing that more fully. Another thing, I was thinking about these yesterday, and I love, how many of you, by the way, did everybody that's in the room receive one of these stones? If you did not, raise your hand, and one of our ushers will come by. So Charles and Alejandra, there's a few people with their arms raised, actually, just look. And so I was thinking about these, and I have a few of them in my nightstand, and I love that it also looks like, the stones that you would build a road with if we all brought our stones together. And what kind of road are we building? Where is that road leading to? I believe that it is the road that we can all take to heaven on earth. And you know what I love? I was thinking, maybe it's a path. No, it's not a path. It's a road. Because the path we forge, right? And we create. But the road, we're making it easier for other people to follow into heaven on earth. And so as we each claim our new name, as we each claim who we are here to be in this new year, what we are really doing is transforming ourselves and allowing the space for humanity itself to be transformed. Now, I've been doing the White Stone ceremony for a couple of years, and part of me is not that happy that I have to admit I've been really focused on that one verse that we use in the Unity services over and over again for White Stone, and I hadn't fully read all of what was before it. And so I thought, well, maybe this is a year where I should. And this verse of the White Stone itself is a reward that one of the churches receives. It's from the book of Revelation. And so in the book of Revelation, it's these writings, and by the way, we study the Bible, and especially Revelation, metaphysically. There are many classes and ways that you can find out how to do that. Do not watch the movie The Omen. That is not the metaphysical interpretation that we have here at Unity on the Bay. But there are 7 churches, and each church is going through its own thing. And so in the book of Revelation, God is speaking to each of the churches. And the white stone is the reward that the church of, I got to read it, Pergamon receives. And this is what the verses say about the church of Pergamon. It says that it is living in a world of false idols. It's what now is Turkey, and so there was a lot of different traditions and different, what we metaphysically would interpret as just other ways of thinking about ourselves and about life, right? That's the metaphysical interpretation. And the verses say that actually they've done a really good job that in the midst of everything that is around them, they have held strong and true to that presence and that nature of God. And so there, God is saying, great job for being spiritually awakened enough to no longer look at the false gods. Metaphysically, we can talk about the fact that we are centered, we are spiritually awakened to the fact that there is that Christ presence within us, that life is a spiritual life, and that we don't have to worship the things of the ego. How many of us have worshiped the things of the ego? How many things we possess or don't possess, how many things we can control or not control, who we can oppress or not oppress, consciously or unconsciously, right? And so all of a sudden, we're invited into recognizing that it isn't about really worshiping that which is outside of us and being defined by the things that are outside of us, but looking within and being true to that and having faith in that. And the verses say, but wait a minute, because there's some things creeping into your church and there's some things that are starting to happen. How many of us have been spiritually awakened to, not the ego, but the place of love? But then some little thoughts come up, some little judgments come up, some invitations to live closer into the ego come up, and sometimes we catch them and sometimes we don't. And so in this moment, God is basically saying, listen, you've done so well. And by the way, hear it from me. Listen, Unity on the Bay, we've done really well. And there's always things that are creeping up. And so how can we be vigilant of that? And how can we know ourselves to be more than that which creeps up? It's not about not having the challenges. It's not about not having the judgments. It's not about not having the sense of limitation that sometimes creeps up. It's what are we going to do with that? Right? Will we allow ourselves to feel in bondage of it? Or can we acknowledge it and be freed from it into a different way of being? Revelation chapter 2, verse 17. This is the one where we speak over and over again every year, right? Let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. To everyone who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give a white stone, and on the white stone is written a new name. And so this verse is stating a lot of different things. First, let anyone who has ears listen to what the Spirit is saying. This is your opportunity as we center ourselves in this ceremony to consciously listen to the voice of God, to consciously listen to that still inner voice. And this is the opportunity for us to set the intention to be listening in this new year. And that listening can look like when something comes up or a stressful thought or a challenge comes up where maybe it's just about being able to be conscious enough to take a step back and take a deep breath. And I'll tell you, taking those breaths become a lot easier when we have a meditation practice that teaches us and reminds us what it is to take a deep breath, what it is to silence the world outside of us and go to that place within us and listen to that inner still voice that is always, always speaking and always seeking to guide us into our best year yet. Then it talks about those who conquer, and I think about, well, what is it that we're conquering? It's another word for overcoming. How many of you, looking back on 2023, can actually look back and say, whoa, I overcame that. I overcame that. And how many of us give ourselves permission to pat ourselves on the back for overcoming what we have overcome? If you do that, awesome. If you haven't done that, don't worry, because I'm going to ask you right here and right now, pat yourself on the back. You have overcome. You and I have been overcomers, and we have been able to conquer that which has been brought into our life, yes, to allow us to recognize some of the spaces where we haven't fully lived into our faith, and also to know our strength and our resilience, and to be able to know that as we have overcome and as we have conquered, we become the living testimony to faith. We become the living testimony to God. We become the living testimony to wholeness and abundance. Did you know that that is what your life is? A living testimony to the power and the grace of God, expressing in each and every one of us and allowing us to be that light that is shared and brings up all of humanity into recognizing their truth. I love this quote by Brene Brown. It says, one day you will tell your story of how you overcame what you went through, and it will be someone else's survival guide. Sometimes I want to do what is right for myself, and sometimes it becomes challenging and difficult, and I look at my son, and I say, okay, if not for me, then for him. I want to be a living testimony for him. I bet there are people in your own life that you want to be a living testimony for, and I bet you are going to be a living testimony to people who will never know your name. But you know what? When you cross the street, they're like, I don't know that person's name, but I'm going to scream out, there goes love. There goes peace. There goes joy. And so, all of a sudden, when we come to this place of knowingness, we get the reward. And it's 3 promises that we are given. The first one is that we shall be provided hidden manna. Manna was food, right? But the manna that we're talking about is spiritual nourishment. The moment that we recognize our truth, the moment that we recognize our own connection and expression of the divine, all of a sudden we will be given the consciousness, the energy, and the resources to live into our truth, to live into our miracles, and to live into our blessings. Yes, the body will be satisfied, the body will be nourished, but first, the spirit will. And that is a promise the moment that we focus or refocus into the presence of God in our lives. The second promise is that white stone. Now, white stones at the time of Jesus and the time of the Gospels, the white stones were given to people that had been imprisoned and had served their time, paid their dues, and this was one of the ways in which they could prove to others when they weren't out, hey, I've done the work, I've paid my dues, I am free. How many of you are done with paying your dues? How many of you are done with paying your time, right? Like so much effort that we have put into living into this external world, and we get to choose freedom right now. We get to choose to be free and to live free. And it's a symbol of us no longer being in bondage. Bondage, and we have been imprisoned. No, we have imprisoned ourselves in judgments, in old ways of being, of patterns of, well, that's the way it was, so that's the way it needs to be. Or that's the way it was, and that's the way that it's always going to be with me. And bondage to playing it small rather than recognizing the truth and the grandeur of the Spirit that is within us. And so how many of us are just done with being in bondage and want to choose freedom? Emily Cady, who is the author of one of the books that Reverend Pam is going to be teaching from, she says this: do not be under bondage to false beliefs about your circumstances or the environment. God is in everything that happens to you. God is in everything and every single one that is a part of our experience. And the beauty of the reward is that the moment that we turn to God is the moment that we will recognize that and see the blessings in everyone and everything. And the third promise is that new name that is written on the white stone. And again, it's about the essence of who it is that we are. It is about the essence of how we want to live into this new year. It is about recognizing the transformation that is at hand, the evolution that is seeking to be lived into in our life and in this year. And so what will that transformation look like for you? What is it that will be guiding you in these moments of transformation? What word, what essence of the Christ will be what lights the way for you to more fully living life in the understanding that God is our life? Adyashanti says it is important for us to realize that we must not only have the courage to recognize the divinity within ourselves, but also to embody it and manifest it in the way that we live. Listen, we are not the same person that we were when we first walked into this holy space that we get to call Unity on the Bay and we get to call our own spiritual community. We will not be the same person once we step out of this. We continually evolve, we continually shift, we continually go deeper, we continually expand, and this is an opportunity to do so consciously. So this is an opportunity to claim our divinity. This is an opportunity to receive the word that will carry us forward. And so I'm going to invite you now to just take a moment and take a deep breath as our song moves us and prepares us for this next part of our ceremony, our meditation. Thank you so much for visiting our YouTube channel. We post new videos every week to keep you positive, present, and inspired to your divinity. Please click on the subscribe button below and also that notification bell. Remember to share this with your friends and your family, those that you know will be inspired just like you have been. And always remember that we love you, that we bless you, that we behold the Christ in you, and we see you doing great things. Thanks and take care.